Our first conversation, and I know that for the wrong reasons, the environment is now finally on our minds. It was looming. For people like Prerna, it has been on their minds for much longer than all of us. It has been on their minds when they were not personally affected. Not because they're only born with a conscious gene, but because they can see what we cannot see. Why should you care if a vulture no longer darkens the skies? Why should you care if there are no dolphins in the water? What do you lose when there are no fireflies left in your backyard? These are not only romantic questions of preserving a species. These are questions of our survival, your survival and mine. These are questions of not only the next generation, but very much now our own. Prerna Bindra has been, for over a decade, she's worked in conservation. She has been on the Prime Minister's, on India's Apex Advisory Body. She has written over 1,500 pieces on various aspects of the environment, but particularly wildlife, India's silent wildlife crisis. She is a naturalist, she's a writer, she's a conservationist. But at the heart of her work is an understanding of why this battle is very much every one of our battles. And it is an absolute privilege for her to take the stage tonight. She's just back having 20 years, 2 decades after she first started working. She's just gone back to college. She went to Cambridge, finished an MPhil, and has returned to Gurugram. We're delighted to have her here this evening. She will present a 20-minute presentation, and we will be taking questions. So please do, if you already have questions, keep them in mind. If the presentation triggers them, do keep them in mind. We'll have a Q&A right after. Prerna, it's a privilege to have you take the stage.
Hello, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thanks for turning up on a Monday evening. As she said, I'm just back from Cambridge, and it's like coming back home. Algebra is like coming back home, so thank you very much for this opportunity. Before I proceed, I would just start by thanking the photographers, artists, filmmakers, cartoonists who have contributed to this presentation but are largely unaware of it. It was mentioned in my introduction that the environment is finally, even if it's for the wrong reasons, certainly for the wrong reasons, it's on the top of our mind. And what I will do in the grand time of like 15-20 minutes is take you through India's wildlife, the present status, which is not very nice, but there are good stories as well, and why it matters to us sitting here in this very privileged and very sheltered space, if not a bubble kind of a space here. So why does it matter if we don't have tigers in the forests or dolphins in the rivers, as she mentions, or those incredible fireflies? I don't know how many of you remember, but I don't have a photograph of that, but it's here in my mind and in my heart when I used to see those fireflies and wonder how that little fire, how can something alive not burn out when, you know, it was on fire? And when I look at the children of today, and I think something in their world is diminished because those wonders are not there for them anymore. You know, we just took it for granted. So yeah, before I proceed, I want you to do something which is certainly not beneficial for your health, and that is take one deep breath. Yeah? And tell me, whom do you owe that oxygen that you breathe? You know, one, of course, as you mentioned, is the forests, which give us 50% of the oxygen that we breathe. And this is like really going back to school. We learned this. How is it now? It's somehow not, we have forgotten those lessons. So the oxygen that we breathe is, half of it is to the forests, and the other is the sea. They are the blue lungs of the planet. And this picture is of olive ridley turtles. I don't know how many of you have been privileged enough to see them, but these amazing animals, they are the world's smallest turtles, nest in just 2 countries, India and Mexico, Costa Rica, sorry. And they traverse the earth, visit beaches of India's eastern coast. This is Odisha. There were 3 coasts. Now only 2 remain. One we have screwed up effectively. And the wonder of it is, it's called Aribada. You see that they come in thousands. And it's called the Aribada because it's arrival in Spanish. They come in thousands, lakhs. They lay their eggs. The females come, lay their eggs, cover them effectively, go back. 50 days later, the hatchlings come out. The males will never come back on land again. But the females, we don't know where they are all the time till they grow up, ready to nest, come back to the same beach again. And these are the wonders of nature that we have in India. What do we do with it? This. So, we treat these blue lungs as a garbage can. So much so that by 2050, the sea will have more garbage than fish. And that's a fact. So these are things that we need to be aware of. But coming closer home, what are these? The Aravalis. What do they do for us? They buffer us from the desert of Rajasthan. And it is because of them that the desert has not marched into Delhi. They give us water, but we have destroyed about half of it. The pollution that we live with, the toxic air that is killing an Indian every 2 minutes, is not just because of the farmers. It's because of the construction that we are doing, and it's because of the fact that we are destroying the life systems that is keeping us alive. So these are, just why what the Aravali does for us, and the way entire mountains have disappeared. This case was in the court and I was there. Entire mountains have vanished because we have quarried them, built these clubs and our homes on them. So what I'll tell you about is India's wildlife crisis and why it matters to you. India has incredible wildlife. It's something I'm very proud of. India is one of the top biodiversity countries in the world. We have tigers, about 70% of the world's tigers. We have elephants, incredible animals. This is a picture I took in Rajaji National Park, just 6-7 hours away. We were on foot. I was there for work. We were on foot. These guys, when they see you, the first thing they do, you will see there are these little babies there. The first thing, so elephants are very much like us, nicer people, but still like us in the sense of the number of years, their social bonds, family, intelligence. When they perceive danger, and unfortunately people only represent danger, and they hide the little babies. So if you actually look under the legs and try and see, there are 2 or 3 babies which they effectively first sort of give them cover, then that's the matriarch who will kind of warn us off, hey, stay away. Yeah, this was one incredible moment. This is the ghadial. Do any of you know what it is, where it's? Yeah, it's a fish-eating crocodile. The legend says that the river Ganga, the goddess Ganga, rode on the ghadial and came down on earth. But the ghadial is extinct from Ganga. Only 2% of its habitat remains. Only about 200 breeding adults remain. And this is in Chambal. Again, I was in, it's called the ghadial because of that ghada that you see. And this is a male. They're very involved fathers. When we were on the river bank, we couldn't see him. We could see these little kids floating around, some on the river bank. We were very cautiously approaching. I think we crossed some kind of Lakshman Rekha. And the next minute, this huge male, and my friend captured it on video, I don't have it, rose up, and all the little ones just kind of, the next moment, you couldn't see him at all. They were all on him. And it was just these moments which are just energized me so much. This is the Great Indian Bustard in Desert National Park. Fewer than 100 survive, only in India. This is the wolf, found in, again, just about 3,000 odd. In India, this is near Pune, in the grasslands of Pune. And, they were there in all of Europe. They're not there anymore. Some of them are coming back now. The last wolf in Britain was wiped out in the the 16th century. And that is what makes me so proud of India. These are countries that we think are better off than us. But as far as wildlife is concerned, we hold our head high. We have so much that they have wiped off. All predators, certainly. This is the wildlife map of India, done by a friend of mine, an illustrator. So we have 52 species of tigers, we have clouded leopard, we have wolves, we have hyenas, we have bears. When we have so much population, so we have all these animals living amongst 1.3 billion and growing, 1.4 billion. And it's a rapidly growing economy. We have 17% of the world's population now in barely 2.5% of the land. So I think it's an incredible achievement of India, largely because we had the political support, thanks to Indira Gandhi, who gave the legal framework to protect India's wildlife, legal and policy framework, which was in the 1970s. And I mean, whatever, whether you agree with her politics, don't agree with her politics, she was a visionary as far as environment was concerned. And we really, really owe it to her. Project Tiger, turtles, crocodiles, etc. was all thanks to her. And also because of this, we worship nature, we revere nature. We worship rivers, mountains. Tiger is the Vahana of Durga. Elephant is Ganesha, Gajraj. Even that little tiny little thing you see at his feet, the mouse, there's a temple for mice at Bikaner. So we revere wildlife, which gives us this amazing tolerance to live with these predators in our midst. But where are we now? I mean, it's all very good. Well, not in a very happy place. We are diluting the legal framework that protects wildlife. We are giving away the last of our forests, rivers, mountains to various industry, infrastructure. There are a huge lot of issues. But we haven't been in a happy place for a very long time. This was a cartoonist who did, because Jairam Ramesh was perceived to be green, when he was pushed, taken away, his ministry was taken away, the environment ministry. This was a cartoon in the Hindu. We aren't in a happy place as far as the environment is concerned. But then, so isn't the world. The US, the situation's the same, and if any of you read the newspapers, Trump is not very good as far as the environment is concerned, and so isn't the Brazilian president, and the Amazon is burning. So it's what wildlife has to do essentially is negotiate its survival in a human-dominated world. And this is what was once a forest. This is in Ooty, because we're just urbanizing. We're just taking over all the last of their forests. This is the Gaur, it's the largest wild oxen in the world. This is a tiger, and this is a highway which runs through one of the finest tiger habitats. If any of you have been to Kanha and Pench, this highway cuts through both the reserves. And this video was quite a sad sight to see the tiger trying to make through. And this was what its forest was like just a few years before. So the question is that I get asked all the time, and it's really a very long, involved answer, is don't we need roads? Yes, we do. But do we need them everywhere? Do we need 8 lanes highways everywhere? What is the cost of those roads? Is it cutting through a watershed? Is it cutting through a very critical elephant forest? What will be the impact on the water supply? These planning questions is there an alternate which will mean just half an hour more for you? But these are questions that never get asked. So, that's something we need to think about. This is a tigress with 5 cubs in Tadoba Tiger Reserve, and perhaps just 20 kilometers as the crow flies are huge coal areas, coal mines. And in fact, one of the reasons that people were very unhappy with Jairam Ramesh was because he had opposed a mine right on the edge of Tadoba Tiger Reserve. And most of our forests, elephant forests, tiger forests, what remain are are also very rich mineral-wise. So we have this constant battle of trying to protect those last of our forests from this. So yes, we are in the Anthropocene. And the age of, this is a particularly sad picture. I don't know if any of you know Assamese. What it reads is Dhan Chor Bin Laden. Dhan Chor, paddy thief, Bin Laden is Osama Bin Laden. This was just after the Twin Towers. This particular picture is an old picture. But I couldn't sleep for nights because the animal we worship as God, and I've seen people touch its feet, being reduced to a thief and a terrorist really, really shook me up because, and I can understand the people's angst too, because it comes into paddy fields and their livelihood is gone in a day, on a night. But what is the elephant to do? Its forests are gone. So it's not an easy situation. This is just about 5-7 kilometers away from where we are sitting, Gurugram. But this is what happens. The leopard had not done anything. It was just there. Probably if he had left it alone and not panicked and generally created a halla and harassed it, the leopard would have gone, and we've seen it happen. I've passed here, we have camera traps in many situations in urban areas, in rural areas, and 2 minutes later, if you open the cameras where we put in certain paths, so a child will have gone to school, group of children chatting away going to school, 2 minutes later leopard going, and they both don't know. I mean, the leopard knows the people exist but stays away, but the people don't know the leopard exists. And that, the invisibility protects it. The shadow cats, this is in Mumbai. So the oldest residents of Mumbai are leopards. And that's in Sanjay Gandhi National Park. You would have heard of the RA, the battle to protect RA. So Sanjay Gandhi National Park is what it abuts. And that is where we have this good density of leopards, touch wood, but very threatened right now. And the people live there. I mean, they didn't know this leopard had visited their home. And even better, if you can put the video on. So we have this great tolerance of living with animals as well. Can you put the video on, please? It's fallen in a well. I watched this video zillions of times, but I always feel this, yay, because, and the leopard is really a very, very remarkable animal. But so are the people who actually might lose their dogs, their chicken or their goats to this leopard, but still, along with the forest department, researchers, NGOs have come together to save this animal, and that ability, we won't even tolerate a mosquito. I live in a society in Gurugram where when they see a bee, there becomes this huge drama, pesticide dalo, bees hain, kal kuch kar lengi. I mean, and yesterday there was on our society group that we've got this bat menace, and I'm always this crazy lady fighting, and I have a friend here who also helps us, Shelin, thanks. But this is thanks to our people. Our relationship wildlife is very complicated, it's complex, it's not easy, but why does it matter? So, what's this? It's a whale, right? Why do we need forests? And one thing that I said in the beginning, it gives us oxygen, but it also sequesters carbon. Very conservative studies, India's forests sequester 11% of carbon. But whales sequester, and you would have heard, plant more trees, this whole thing, ke plant karo, usse hoga. No, please conserve what you have. And this is a new study. We know that whales sequester carbon. One whale live will sequester equal to 1,000 trees. It draws in carbon, it stores carbon in its huge body, its poo, etc., is fertilizer for marine algae, which also sequesters carbon. And then when a whale dies, it takes all those tons and tons of carbon and sinks to the sea, not allowing it to be released in the atmosphere. So it's literally a carbon sink. And this study, which equated it to so many dollars, one whale is worth, was not done by a tree hugger, not by an environmentalist, not by anybody else. It was done by economists in the IMF, International Monetary, Federation. So this is not from an environmentalist or whatever. These are studies, even the 11% carbon, these are all being done by economists. And the worth, and I can go on and on about how similarly elephants do a similar role in the forests. Vultures. So I'll just wind up by, how many of you remember seeing vultures? As children, when we used to go to our grandparents' house, etc., we'd lie on the cot and we would see the skies darken. Or if there was a carcass, within 20 minutes, half an hour, it was over. Now if you see a dog dead or a buffalo dead or whatever, it just lies there. I'll just finish in 2 minutes. But what has it meant for us? So we lost a vulture, we lost a bird. But the end of a species has led to a national health emergency. See, we are such casteist kind of creatures, na, racist casteist. So jo safai karta hai, wo ganda hai. Hai ki nahi? Matlab even in our human society, the one who cleans is so the similar one, the poor vulture is malign, but what it is doing is actually cleaning out the worst of the things. The carcasses would lie, it's very efficient, it would clean it down to a bone. When they died, and we have lost 97 to 98%, so when they are nearly extinct, the dogs have taken over. But they're not efficient predators, scavengers, sorry. So those pathogens, etc., don't die. Those things remain in the carcass, translate to zoonotic diseases like anthrax. Plus, the number of dogs increased after the vulture went extinct, and rabies peaked. And we had a peak of people, number of people dying of rabies. So each animal like that, bees, pollinator, bats, pollinators. So, these are again things we learned as children, but we have forgotten along the way. So the extinction matters. It's not just the loss of a tiger or a bee or a whatever. When we lose something, it affects the entire ecosystem. So I always say we don't need the tiger. The tiger doesn't need us. We don't need to save the tiger. The tiger is saving us. And I'd like to end there. Thank you very much for your patience.
Prerna, thank you. Just as mics will come around, and just the first question to start, and a quick note, Prerna has 4 or 5 books available outside, particularly The Vanishing. I think will take this conversation forward. Please do use the opportunity to buy it, because a lot of the questions that she started to address here get addressed very comprehensively in the book. But I have just as a starting question, is it in fact possible and what it will take, we will come to our assuming question, is it in fact possible to find a balance between the needs for development and the needs for sustaining those species? Do you believe there is a balance possible?
There is a balance possible, yes. Are we, but when I used to sit in those Prime Minister committees or whatever they were, when we had to regulate projects within protected areas, they said, "Arey, balance karna hai na?" Haan boliye, balance karna hai. But 97% of the projects go through. We are not doing anything for that balance. So yes, we can, But if our greed is ceaseless, if if we just keep on thinking कि हम जो भी करते रहेंगे, पानी रहेगा, because our greed is infinite and the resources
The
are
issue
finite.
is not need, it's greed.
Yeah, I mean, we need to plan better. We need to look at economic costs. We need to look at ecological costs. We need to look at social costs, not just contract dena hai, ya ye karna hai. So I think we can, but we have to be we have to plan.
Are there questions? Would anybody who has a question, please raise your hand? Sorry, we'll get a mic to you in a second, and there's another question.
Yeah, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. I found that very, very interesting. What led you into the field of environment protection? Do you have an educational background, or is it an interest?
I took my educational background in conservation like this last year.
Okay.
So actually, the vanishing answers that. I write about it. But, my mother was very compassionate. I read a lot of books. But what I couldn't see was what we were doing to our world. I think it was a hell of a lot of factors. I mean, I remember I was a kid, and I saw people killing a snake. And all I did was I picked it up, put it in a bag, and took it to the zoo in a bus. And it was the only time I got a seat to myself in the bus, because I said, I have a snake. But I think it was a lot of factors.
That's strange. Delhi buses are full of snakes.
No, snakes are much nicer people. So they will only attack if provoked. So it's a mix of a lot of things. But where I had seen my first wolf, the cement factory came up, and what hit me even more was that nobody seemed to be talking about it. And that is when I got this grand idea that I should write about it. I have a management background. My first job was in IIM Ahmedabad. And I had this grand idea that I will write about it and change the world. When you're young, you are very idealistic. And that's how I started, because nobody seemed to be talking about the fact that, where there was a wood, it wasn't there anymore, or we couldn't go and swim in the pond that we used to earlier because it was full of toxins. So things like that. Yeah, so the apathy, the last slide that I didn't show, still persists. I mean, our children can't breathe. But when you have, a demonstration to protect the Aravali, 250 people turn up, yeah? 300 people. I mean, our children can't breathe, even so. So I think unless that apathy goes.
There was a question at the back.
Yeah, my question is that whether it's environment, wildlife, water, renewables, there's an increasing awareness, climate change across the board. But what in your view, since you're from the field, and I know that in addition to charity begins at home, what can the normal people like us do to create a teeny weeny bit of influence and impact and a positive change? Because a part of me and a larger population believes that we've crossed the tipping point and it's a ticking time bomb. So if there is hope, then where is hope when it comes to the practical aspects of daily life?
Thanks for that question. So see, one generic answer is, carry your own bag and don't use straws and blah, 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 which is very useful, and I would urge you to do it. But what is much more important is be politically active. Conservation is all about politics. It's all about economics. It's all about, you can't save the world. I can't save the world. But if trees in your neighborhood, if a wetland in your neighborhood, and there are people working on it, they need you to speak up. Please be aware of what is happening. That's one. And be political, make the right choices. How many of you, actually read what the politicians, your local MLA, your party manifesto says? I always read the environment and there's nothing. I always write about it. This is what they, hold them accountable. As I keep saying, if we are not even riled about the fact of the air or the water that we drink, I find it very difficult to find hope for tigers and elephants, if you know what I mean. But I think that, just that, in itself. Is there a rally for Aravalis this Sunday? Please go. The politicians and the bureau are only going to care about it if you, the electorate, is going to care about it. And I think that is, if you're a journalist, please write about it. If you're a teacher, you know, talk about it in your school. I've known teachers who have made this huge difference in their school by just, you know, taking them to forest. If you're a lawyer, please give your legal help. There is endless scope for what you can do. Take your kids out, get them to read, get them to ask questions. I mean, there is no limit to what we can do. I mean, I just started as in, just, you know, like you and me. I mean, we're all in it together, so.
There's a question at the back. Can we have a mic at the back?
Congratulations and kudos to what you're doing. I'm Dr. Parul, and we were one of the key people to start the pollution. And I completely agree with you. I think what is killing us than anything else is apathy. I cannot understand why we cannot step out for an hour to raise our voice. When we work at our organization, we have this huge HR culture where we say that the people makes the organization. A city is also made by people. The people's voice will be heard if we speak out aloud. We have to create a political will. So on your behalf, I want to make a plea to every single person here that any next movement on planet, Earth, saving nature, trees, we all have to make a pledge to step out. You know? So thank you for doing what you're doing, and that's very important that we realize that. Thank you.
Sorry. Are there success stories that or maybe
Yes.
anything that
Yes,
you'd like
yes,
to
yes.
share? Which is not to say that we should take false hope,
No.
but for example, something that may have started out as a small-scale movement that you
Yeah.
saw really did make a difference.
Lots of things, and just, you know, an answer to your question and your question, I took a lot of inspiration from Rachel Carson, The Silent Spring. One woman, I don't know how many of you have read the book. If you have not, please go and read it. The first woman, she wrote about how pesticides enter into the food chain, you know, are used and enter into the food chain into us, in our breast, mother's milk. And she wrote the entire pesticide in the fertilizer industry, which was huge in the US. She was vilified, it was said that she's mad, but she was the one who brought about change. There were laws to regulate fertilizers, the Environment Protection Agency came into force, and that's one woman. So, you know, that was one inspiration for me, and lots of success. I mean, I can't say lots of success stories. If I do 100 things, maybe one, I mean, we were able to conserve or protect 2 protected areas in Uttarakhand. It's always a collective effort. I had a very, and thanks to the state government. So there have, well, the highway through the biodiversity park was stopped, thanks to the people. So there's a lake that was revived in Bangalore. Alavali Biodiversity Park is a success story in itself, right in our backyard. I've seen such rewilding stories. There is one called Jabbat Khet in Mussoorie, where they have come together to conserve one hill. And then, of course, Nayantara Sehgal also played a role. She was here in helping stop the mining in those beautiful hills around. It's thanks to her that, I mean, not her, but thanks to that entire movement, you know, that we have those when we go, you know, look up at Landor, or you look up in Mussoorie, those hills are still alive. Leopards still roam, and bears still roam, and wildlife still roams. There is hope. I always say till the last tiger, you know, because tiger is so symbolic to our country, or the last elephant, which is my very favorite animal, is there. No, there's always hope. We lose most of our battles, but we win some. And yeah, it's the wildlife which energizes me.
I think that's all the time we have for the moment, but please do buy a copy of The Vanishing Prerna is around when we take a break to continue the conversations. And if any of you would like to reach out to her, just connect with any one of the Algebra team and we'll be happy to put you through. Thank you very much, Prerna.
Yeah, and also, incidentally, one of our books, I saw one of my books for the first time today. So yeah, you bought that one. The Wild Treasures. So it's actually unofficially the launch of that today.
Congratulations. We're privileged that today is the launch.
I didn't know it was out, you know. I just saw it here. So yeah, I'm glad. Thank you
Prerna.
so much.
Thanks for being here. Thank you for taking the time.